And we are live. Hello, friends from the YouTube. Excited to start this office hours on the 5th of November. So let me just grab this URL here really quick and share it with our friends on Discord. So here we go. So yeah, if you've never been to office hours before, let me close this distraction here. It's basically once a week, I jump on a Zoom call and answer questions from anybody and do the best that I can to answer and let you know when you should probably not listen to me. But it's basically, it's a little bit selfish. I just want to, I want to answer people's questions, but I don't always have time throughout the week. And so I just kind of queue it all up here during this 1 hour so we can just get through it all. And then I can have it recorded and put on YouTube as well. So yeah, that's basically the whole idea. I give preference to people who are actually in the Zoom call. And then I go to the Discord channel. We typically have a couple of questions from here. It looks like starting right here at Marcos question. So I'll answer that. And that actually looks like the only question that we've got in Discord. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask on Discord or join the Zoom call. And we'll just go ahead and get started. Anybody in the Zoom call have a question to get us going?
Well, I've been building a Shopify headless site, and it's built on Next. And I was listening to your podcast the other day about your site and the personalizations on it. And I'm kind of in between this idea of doing the static region stuff on demand because I have tons of pages. I just wanted to get your thoughts on like the e-commerce side of things.
Sure. Yeah. So because you have tons and tons of pages, statically generating it at build time probably just won't fly.
No.
And in addition, like the primary reason that people want to do static generation is, or at least what has been sold to us, is for performance reasons. That's why they always say, oh, do static site generation, and it'll be faster. That is not true. It may have been true a while ago, but yeah, that's not true anymore. Because of the awesome hosts that we have now. I'm guessing because you're using Next, you're also using Vercel.
Yes.
Yeah. So Vercel is a really awesome distributed serverless environment, and so you shouldn't worry about like performance from that standpoint. In addition, if you set the right, so there are a lot of things to take into consideration. If you can just cache the entire thing via HTTP cache headers, then yeah, you're basically the same as SSG at that point. You just, instead of building at build time and then having to rebuild the entire site every time you make any change, you can actually build at runtime, and then it's cached on their CDN. And so it's just like where that HTML is generated happens at build time for SSG and then at runtime for SSR. But in either case, it's going to be cached on a CDN.
So can I ask one? So the real problem that we're running up against is not really the incremental region on the products, but on the collection pages, because what I really want is static collection pages. And when things are changing with the inventory and getting very dynamic, is there some way to not have Ajax in there to have to go call it back? And like, I've really only seen one website that does it correct, and it's Walmart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to figure out like, why is that part so hard?
Yeah, so let me make sure I understand you correctly. So you have these collections of products, and you want that to be dynamic based on whatever that collection should be right now for this request. Is that right?
Well, they just get stale if someone buys it and it goes out of stock. Now that page needs to get regened, and then it trickles down to all the other pages.
Right. Yeah. So what you want is server rendering. You can't statically generate that with like any amount of reasonableness. And so, yeah, so I would just server render that. And every request goes to check what product should be on that in that collection. And then it will always be up to date. The problem with server rendering that people always bring up as well, then it's super slow. Like it takes forever to determine the products that should be on there. And the solution for that is you throw a cache in front of it, and you cache it for as long as you're able. And so, and what's cool about that is you can actually have the computation like constantly running in the background, and that's the part that's taking the long time. And then just serve the latest, most up-to-date version to the user that you can. And so let's say that calculating what items should be on that collection takes like 2 seconds. You don't want your request to take 2 seconds. That's ridiculous. And so you just, when a user makes a request to that page, you just serve them the most recent version of that information that is available, which you may have calculated 2 seconds ago. So maybe they're 2 seconds or maybe even 10 seconds stale, but that's certainly better than the alternative, which is waiting for 2 seconds to get the latest stuff, or having like some static generated thing, which could be like way stale, like way older. And so, yeah, and if you want it to update in real time or something, then you can like do WebSockets and stuff too. But yeah, for most people, I think it makes a lot of sense to just when the user makes a request, you just serve the data from the cache, and so it's super fast. And then you just make sure that that cache is updated at a frequency that makes sense for you. What I do for my site is I actually I don't proactively update the cache. I just will, when the user requests the data, I send them the cache value, and then I ask the cache, like, is this expired? If it is, then go ahead and update yourself. And so, yeah, so that's the way that I approach it, and that works out really well for me. But you could also just have like a job in the background that's constantly updating the cache value. And so then the users, in that scenario, the users should never get anything that's older than like 2 seconds, if that's how long it takes to get that data up to date. So,
Gotcha. Okay, that helps. Cool. Actually, one other thing I would ask is, what is the absolute, like the unreasonable thing to do, like the best possible user experience, no hold bar, like in a perfect world, everything is possible. What do you think that is on pages like that?
Yeah, best user experience, of course, is really fast, so instant response and up-to-date data. That's yeah. And then also like, customized to the user as well, if that's like relevant.
So we're using Algolia, so we plan on doing all the different personalization. That's where I separate people into like the new versus the returning user, and that's kind of where, like, if my like new user's first page, like no personalization, I want that to basically be static if possible. Obviously that's hard. But then as someone's like maybe logged in, maybe they get a slightly different style of loading on pages to get a little more personalized.
Yeah, sure. And even with the user who's never shown or this is their first time there, with a product collection where you've got quantities and stuff, and there's no longer stuff there, you can't do static. And so you have to do server rendered if you want it to be up to date. And I guess I should also mention that you technically can do static, because you can load the data on the client, which is what Gatsby would have you do. But that is not a good user experience. You want it to be server rendered on demand, but also really fast and up to date, so that the user doesn't land on your page and just see a bunch of loading spinners. Right. And you're using infrastructure that is capable of making server rendered really fast. And so, yeah, I don't see any reason why you'd want to statically generate anything and like request it on the client. And so, yeah, the difference between a returning user and a brand new user, is basically the returning user gets some additional data, right? And that data can also be cached, whether it be like Redis or if your Postgres or whatever is super fast, and maybe because on my site, every request hits Postgres a couple times and Redis a couple times, and Postgres is fast enough to make my site as fast as it is. And so, yeah, so I don't cache that. There are some things I do cache. There's like the blog read rankings, that maybe I could optimize the queries, but that ends up making 9 queries for every blog post.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy. See, like we've got all these crazy GraphQL queries. Like we've got this thing trimmed down to where it's like just bare bones, absolute minimum amount of like stuff in there. And I'm just trying to like very decidedly piece the thing together so that I have a good starting point.
Yeah, well, to be clear, my queries are happening on the back end. So even with your GraphQL magic that you're doing, at some point you're going to get to your resolvers, and you're probably going to be making a bunch of database queries at that point. And that's what I'm talking about. Is I'm making like 9 database queries from my back end for the read rankings, and so for that I do actually cache that in. I actually do an in-memory cache for that one. So anyway, yeah, there are a lot of options, but the optimum user experience is fast, accurate, or like up to date, and customized. And I think that there's nothing stopping you from being able to do that with the tech that you're using right now. I think that you could do it easier with Remix, but I'm not going to tell you to rewrite your app to Remix.
I'm not opposed to that. Like we don't have a ton of like, that's kind of like I am trying to figure out what I want to maintain for the next like 5 years, right? So I Remix was still just a little too early. I honestly have not looked at it enough to even know about it. I was trying to even find it. It's hard to buy it right now. So
yeah, you can't buy it right now.
I was on that email list a long time ago, but
yeah. Okay, so nobody tell Ryan or Michael about this. But right now there's no way to use Remix or to jump onto Remix as a new user, because it used to be a paid thing, and then they decided to go open source. So they took down the ability to purchase a license, but they haven't gone open source yet. So there's no way to try it out as a new user. But a few months ago, I wrote this blog post, Super Simple Start to Remix. And this, I put in like a fake key or license token. And when they just announced that they were going open source, I added this little note to say, hey, they're going open source, so you can't buy it. But I actually also updated this key to something different that might actually, I'm not going to say any more than that. So go ahead and if you want to just play around with it, might try that.
Definitely. So one other question, do you have any insight into like the cost difference from a hosting perspective with Remix and like a Next.js at like 250,000 page views a month?
Yeah, well, so the cost is unlikely to be impacted directly by the framework that you choose. It's more about the infrastructure and what you're doing with that infrastructure. Yeah, I can't really think of anything in particular that from like the infrastructure standpoint that will be impacted by using Remix versus Next versus anything else.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, from there, it comes down to the optimizations you need to make for your infrastructure and how easily that the framework that you've chosen makes those optimizations. And I'm not sure whether I can speak to that a whole lot. I know that like Remix makes it really easy for you to manage cache headers. They are really good about only requesting data when it's necessary, and so you potentially would make fewer requests. Yeah, I don't know. And then of course, there's the cost of maintainability. And I personally feel like Remix is easier to maintain than a Next app. But Yeah, that may be a little subjective. Like people, it depends on how good you are with Next and versus Remix and what the team is like and stuff like that. But those are just my personal thoughts.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure. Cool. Anyone else in the Zoom call have questions?
Hello.
Mohammed, I heard you for a second there and then, oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry, Mohammed, I can't hear you.
Hey, can I ask you this?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out really bad. I think.
Sorry, I'm
Mohammed, sorry to interrupt. None of us can really make out what you're saying, and I don't know if you can hear me. Okay. I'm gonna mute you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I really can't hear you, and I can't mute you for some reason either. But if you could please just ask in the Discord, and I'll get to your question there because I can't make any sense of what you're saying. I think your connection's just really bad. Sorry. Anybody else in the Zoom have a question? Okay, sweet. Then I'll just go over to the Discord. Sorry about that, Mohammed. I hope you do ask your question here in the Discord. I'd like to get to it. Just couldn't make sense of what you were saying. Okay, Marcos last week asked, okay, the root of the issue is questionable UX decision. Yep, okay, I remember looking at this earlier. We have a child inside of a modal child inside of a modal parent is under some conditions opened as the parent is opened. Okay, so I'm guessing, yeah, the child is open as soon as the parent is open under certain conditions. Since they're both are portaled to the same container, but child finishes rendering first, they end up where the child appears in your modals div first, okay? Yeah, okay, and so the parent shows up first. So yeah, you could do a Z index, but maybe what you could do instead is make the, so I presume you have this modals container div that's probably in the body. That's like a pretty normal way to do that. Maybe what you could do is make that modal div or that container be configurable. And so by default, it just goes into your modal div that's in the body. But then for the parent that's going to be wanting to render the child, the parent could say, actually, no, I've got my own div that I want to send, that I want the child to be attached to. And that could be within the parent. And so then you could have modals, parent, and then child is within the parent. That would be another way to solve this, probably without seeing your specific code and stuff. It's hard to give you more specific recommendations, but that seems to me like that would be a reasonable solution. Alternatively, Z-index, maybe what you're like a fine solution. You just need to have some way to globally manage that so that you don't end up with like the same problem, just like manually managed. Yeah. That's all that I have to offer you there, Marcos. Good luck. Okay, Dominic. Sweet. You're listening. Good. Oh yeah, Mohammed, are you back? Yeah, still can't hear you. Sorry. Feel free to interrupt me if you get your connection.
Yeah.
Okay, there you are.
Is it better now, or the
No,
connection
it's like a tiny bit better, but I barely understand you. It would probably be better if you just ask on the Discord. Sorry.
Oh, I rather. Okay. But I can hear you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mohammed. You'll have to listen.
Yeah,
I still can't make any sense of what you're saying. You'll have to listen on the YouTube live stream later to hear what we're all hearing, because I can't understand you. Sorry. Okay, so I'll go ahead and ask on the Discord and I'll get to you. I'll get to Dominic's question while you're, oh wait, no, we've got a chat here in Zoom. Yeah, okay, we we don't chat in Zoom if we can. Okay. So Dominic is asking, I heard you say a couple of times that you don't understand why the Next.js team recommends to do auth checks and redirects on the client side. I was wondering whether you could talk a little bit about why you think that and elaborate on that. I did auth check server side with Next.js and found user experience way better doing the client side version, though it does mean spinners. Just wondering if you have any thoughts on this. Okay, so first off, spinners, I think automatically puts it in the not great user experience category. If you can get rid of spinners, that's a very good thing. So yeah, I don't think that it could possibly be a way better user experience. However, it could be an easier developer experience, which maybe that's what you're confusing this with, because I've never done auth with Next before myself, but I've heard from many people that doing authentication with Next is a real pain. And so maybe that, and I think that's probably why the Next team recommends doing it on the client side. I do have a blog post about doing client side redirects and the problems with that. Redirect, here we go. So I will paste that to talk about why it's good to not do client-side redirects, and you should do those on the server. But yeah, in general, it's just not a great user experience to land on a page and see one thing and then be redirected client-side to something completely different. And I can give you an example for my own stuff. I didn't build this, but it's like my own product. Epic React Dev, if you're logged in, then it will load this page and then it will redirect you to learn to /learn so you can see all of the content. That is not a good user experience. I just want to be server redirected to the /learn page, but we have to do it this way because we built this with Gatsby, or the team did. And so like there's no alternative for us. Like alternatively, we could just not do a redirect and people would just like figure out that they need to go to /learn if they want to see the content. But we decided we would rather do the redirect because nobody wants to go to the homepage. Another alternative is we just turn the homepage into the content, which I think is what we did on testingjavascript.com actually. So you land on this page and it shows you this, and then it re-renders the whole thing with a logged in version. This is also built in Gatsby. So here you are. I'm showing you like my mistakes. Well, yeah, my own products and the problems that we have with doing client-side redirects. It's not a good user experience at all. And so yeah, that's why you should do all of your auth checks on the server and render exactly what the user should see on the server. So like here's an example. I'm here on my personal profile page on my own website. And if I open up an incognito tab that's not logged in, then you notice I don't render that /me and then redirect. I just render the login screen and the URL gets updated to /login. This is the way that the web has worked for forever since redirects were a thing. And yeah, and it's the way that we should be building our website still, because it's a much better user experience. On top of that, it's better for SEO and everything else as well. So the browsers can make a lot more sense of doing server-side redirects. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Dominic, thanks for the question. Okay, so we've got a couple people typing some questions, and so I'm just going to take a bite out of a Pop-Tart and take a drink. Oh, while we're waiting, any of y'all who are in Europe, if you want to go skiing with me and learn React at the same time, AgentConf is in Austria, and it's 2 days of conferencing and 2 days of skiing and snowboarding, and it's going to be awesome. And the day before, we're doing a workshop, Advanced React Patterns. And so, yeah, I want to invite you to do that, to come to my workshop. I just actually updated the Advanced React Patterns again to add back a pattern that I used to teach, and I decided not to when I went to React Advanced. and had enough questions about it that I was like, okay, I guess I'll bring this pattern back. So you can see all the content on the Advanced React Patterns workshop repo. But yeah, that workshop is accepting attendees. So please jump in and join us. It's going to be great. I feel like there was something else. Oh yeah, and I published a new blog post today about that pattern that I added. So if you want to take a look at the state initializer pattern, then feel free. It's kind of fun. Okay, sweet. Oh, here we go. Rasul. Oh, here's Mohammed. Since Mohammed, you're in here, I'll answer your question here really quick. So you're seeking for perfect SSR responsiveness. Okay, the mobile and desktop UI are different drastically, and the bytes matter. Tested 3 ways. Now I'm gonna test the user agent with Nginx to redirect with environment, mobile or desktop to pass as build. Okay, that sounds reasonable to me. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll get to your question, Russell. It's just Mohammed is actually in the Zoom call, so I give priority to people who are in the Zoom call. But unless you happen to be in here, and I didn't notice, but it doesn't look like you are. So yeah, I don't see a question in here. That seems like a fine approach. If you were just wondering about my approach or what I think of that approach, that seems fine to me. I don't know what you mean by as build, unless what you're serving, what you're trying to decide is like serving 2 different builds of your app, which I know I've actually seen people do that exact thing before for localization, actually, where the localization strings are embedded in the built version of the app. Yeah, you don't need to do that with Remix, but yeah, if you're like doing that with some Webpack build or something, then I've seen people do a Nginx magic with that. I'm not an Nginx master wizard or whatever, but yeah, this seems like a fine way to do this. And if I were building this with Remix, it might be the same thing. I don't know if I'd do that in Nginx. I'd probably have something on the, some utility that I could pass a request to, and it would tell me whether the request is coming from a mobile device or not. And then I could render the right thing based on that. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, that seems what you have there seems like a fine approach to me. So, okay, Rasul, let us see your, what about your timer? Okay, so this looks like a big block of code. Rasul, here you are.
I just joined. I just joined on Zoom. So can I share my screen?
Oh, sure.
So,
yeah, might be easier. Go for it.
Yeah, hopefully.
Mohammed, you just asked, what about SAG page? I'm not sure what SAG means.
I don't know.
Oh, SSG. Yeah, so for static site generation, then you would need Nginx to redirect to the different static builds. And so your approach looks fine. So this is another limitation of SSG. There you go. But I realize that not everybody can instantly rewrite their entire app from SSG to SSR like in a day. So I'm not criticizing the fact that that's what you're with. It's just that is another limitation of SSG, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, your approach sounds fine. Okay, cool. Go ahead, Rasul.
Yes. So here is, I have. I don't know if you remember that, but I spoke with you a couple.
Yeah, I remember ago. This. Yeah.
Yeah. So I looked to this blog post from Dan Abramov, but it's not work like what I wanted, because I have a couple things like linked to this timer. So for example, so here I have a ref. I have a counter, and I have use ref who pointing to that counter, and then I have this use effect. And inside here, so what I have done here is next question. So if the time is out, I want to update the current question to next question. And then, yeah, I have something here to set also. So this is number one. And then here is the interval and the set interval. And inside here, I don't know if I'm not sure if this is the correct way, but yeah, this is my question. We have to clean up, like I clean up here and I clean up here in the cleanup news effect.
Okay. So yeah, the doing a clear interval within a set interval is basically, well, I can you explain to me what the interval ref is?
So this is the interval ref.
Oh,
here.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want to avoid doing side effects like setting a ref within the body of your function. And I have a blog post about that on is that on Epic React? Let me grab a link to that and I'll paste it in.
Thank you. Yeah.
Discord. Yeah, I've got another blog post actually that I'll share with you too about putting refs in a dependency array. So on line 50, you don't want to do that either. Okay. And yeah, the blog post will help with that. But that's not the one I was talking about. We're looking for one about, yeah, where did I put that? Did I ever write that? Maybe I never wrote that. Let's see. What would I have called that? Nope. Shoot, I may never have written that. Okay. Okay. Oh, actually, maybe I answered it on a Call Kent podcast thing. Let me just see that really quick.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did it on here somewhere. Sorry. Nope, I can't find it. So I'll just explain that one here really quick. So if you go up to line 20, where you're assigning the current value there, you don't want to do this because it's actually a concurrent feature thing. So you're probably not going to have any trouble with this right now, but you could in the future. So let me explain why. A couple of, just take a couple of steps back. So with concurrent mode or the concurrent features, what that enables is while React is running and rendering your components and while it's calling your functions and everything, while React is doing that, the browser can't respond to user input. And so if React is so busy doing all that stuff and the user's trying to type, the user won't see their keyboard presses and all of those events get handled until after React is done doing its stuff. Normally, this isn't a big deal because React is really fast and JavaScript is fast, but sometimes it's not. And I'm sure you've experienced situations where like the input was really laggy and stuff, not good. So, so the React team years ago decided, okay, we want to solve this problem. And the solution from a high level is basically, let's have React just check with the browser every now and then and just say, hey, browser, do you have some events that you want us to handle? You don't? Okay, then I'll just keep working. And so it's just constantly checking, can I keep working? Can I keep working? And if the browser says, oh, actually the user did type in this input, then React will say, oh, okay, cool. Let me put all this work off to the side so I can handle that, that input, that event or whatever. And then I'll come back and finish my work. So what can happen when you do what you're doing on line 20 there is the React is doing its work. It calls your function here. You set the interval ref current. And then before this actually gets a chance to render that with that current counter or whatever, the user does some sort of interaction that interrupts React. And so maybe they press a key or something like that. And React says, oh, okay, I haven't had a chance to render this yet, but I'm going to pause really quick and handle that event. So then it's going to call your event callback, and your event callback might reference that interval ref .current value, which is now set to a value that was never actually committed to the DOM. And so you can wind up with a value that may never actually intended, it was never intended to exist in the first place because the event that was fired changed it or whatever. And so the issue here is that while it may often not be a problem, when it is, it's a very difficult problem to reproduce and to understand what's going wrong. So like it's really difficult to reproduce because you'd have to time your keyboard presses exactly when React happens to be rendering this component. And that would just, I can't even imagine, like even writing a test for that, a robot test, it would be really hard to reproduce that. So for that reason, you never want to do any sort of side effects inside of the body of your function. And so the solution there is to just wrap that in a React use effect and do the setting inside of a use effect, because then it will only be set when React is all done and has updated everything. So that's what I'd recommend just for that line. That's not what's causing your problem, but it's just something that like
no, it's actually very interesting. And we have I think I'm going to try to avoid that, because it seems like as you explained, it is very like complicated complicated problem. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so now that I understand what the interval ref so wait, that counter, what is that counter?
So the counter is just the delay, actually.
The delay, like input delay or like a debounce or something?
No, actually, so I have something. It's a state I have to show to the user. How many how many seconds they have in the question. So yeah, it's just count down, actually.
Oh, I see.
So
okay.
Here if you see here, I just set it -1.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay, that's making a lot of sense. So every second you are counting down the counter. Okay. Yeah. All right, that's all starting to make a lot more sense. Yeah, let's see. And so every second you count it down, and when we get to 0,
I just moved to the next question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I have to move to the next question, and when it's time, it's 0. And if the second thing is when user click on one of the questions, on that I have to clear the interval and go to the next question and start from like full time and count down in the next question. So it's
okay.
that.
So what I would do then is okay, so remember that well, here, first of all, on line 50 you can take out the interval ref.current from that dependency array, because for the reason that I share in the blog post. Did I already send that? Yeah, so I just sent you a blog post that explains why, but you don't need to have that in there. And so so remember that use effect, the entire purpose of use effect is to synchronize the state of the world with what the state of your application is. And so if the state of your application is the user made a change to a question, or the user is on this current question, so we need to start the countdown timer, then that's what should be in the dependency array, is the current question. And so even though you're not actually using the current question in there, you can actually put the current question in that dependency array to trigger this interval to start.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this will, whenever that current question changes, it's going to clear the previous interval and start a new one. And then because you also have that other use effect that sets the counter to 5, then that will also run. But this all seems like the same concern to me. So I would actually probably combine those two use effects and put that set counter at the top of, so the line 53, I'd put it on line 29, just above line 29.
Okay.
And get rid of that second use effect, because that I group effects by concerns. And so that's the concern here, is this is the countdown timer.
Actually, now I see what you're talking about. It's interesting. Yeah.
And so now that you have things this way, let's see. Yeah, that clear interval that you have on line 40 is fine. They've reached the end of the quiz. You don't need a countdown anymore. And so, yeah, that seems fine. I'm just thinking about that interval ref. I think that's necessary, but I'm wondering if there's a way to make it not be. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So then the other thing I noticed was on line 24, you have that get next question index. That doesn't seem all that useful to me.
Actually, because no, I just check actually online. Yeah, online 39.
Right. Yeah, I just mean I don't understand why you need that to be a function. I would just take what you have on line 25, the current question +1, and put that in place of get next question index on line 30, unless you're using that elsewhere. But even then, I'm not sure how useful that is. Like what you could do is you could just say constant next question index equals current question +1 instead of the function, and then just use that variable. I guess I'm just not sure why you made it a function. I don't. It just seems more complicated than it's worth.
Okay. I will look up, because it's a long time I opened this project. So yeah, I will see why I do that. I did that. And thank you so much, Kent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yago here in the Discord also mentioned that that function, if you leave it as it is, that function should be included in the dependency array on line 51. Two things about that. First of all, yes, that is true. It's not going to make an impact necessarily, because you're already listing the current question as the dependency array for both of those. And so it's going to end up working out anyway. But it is correct, and it should be in that dependency array. But the second thing there is that you should be getting a linting warning because you don't have it listed in the dependency array. And so that tells me that you don't have the ESLint plugin installed in your app.
Actually, I install it, but I don't know what's happening, because I'm using Yarn, but with the NPN it's working. But with Yarn, I don't know what's happened. It didn't warn me about anything. So yeah.
Well, I've got a simple solution that you might not like, and that's just use NPM.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, some people seem to really like Yarn, and I don't know why. But if you like Yarn, then feel free to figure out why that's not working. But anyway.
Yeah. Actually, even at work, I'm using NPM. So now I have to just switch back to NPM. Yeah. Thank you so much. Kent.
Yeah. Sure thing. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
I noticed that Tim Dorr is here. What's up, Tim? Good to see you.
Hello.
I just came to hang out.
I was working on some docs for React Router 6 that just released. And it's blowing up my GitHub notifications as we speak.
I'm sure it is.
Oh, there's so many things to respond to. And I also did a Redux alpha the other day too.
Man, you've been
We have
busy.
React Redux alpha. All the things are changing. React 18 is coming down the pipe soon, so everyone's
mhm.
getting prepared for that.
Yeah,
Um,
is React 18 going to have that use mutable source or something akin to that?
um, I think so. So we're using like a wrapper package for React Redux 8, where I believe we have compatibility to use like previous versions of React 18. Sorry, like 17 and 16.
Hmm.
But I believe that's like it's just a shim layer. So like if you're on React 18, it's like directly using what's embedded inside the React library.
Hmm.
And basically what that's doing is like our job for us. So
Nice.
like a lot of the things that we built ourselves to handle like the mapping of like the store mechanics of subscription, and mapping that over to like the life cycle of like a React component.
Yeah.
That's all like built in, like it's basically built that way because of us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think like
Thank
Andrew
you.
Clark, who's doing, I believe, most of the development on it, um, who's ACD Light on GitHub and stuff like that, and one of the core team members. He's also like a co-creator of Redux along with Dan, and it's kind of like a self-serving thing. Like they know they have a lot of like Redux users, so
Hmm.
it's not just for their own like I guess needs, but
Hmm.
the needs of the greater community as well. So
Hmm.
they figure like baking this stuff into the library itself benefits one of their most popular third-party libraries, but also gives like a path and a pattern for like other libraries that are doing much the same thing. Um, maybe like XState or some other like state management libraries. Um, or state machine libraries, I guess in that case.
Hmm.
Uh, to have the like same tools available, so everyone's kind of like on the same playing field. There's no like, if you choose like a different library than Redux, you're not like at a disadvantage because they haven't figured out some like small little tiny thing, especially with like all the async suspense stuff that's coming up.
Right.
That's kind of like throwing a wrench in the works for a lot of like how people used to write apps before. So
Cool. Sweet.
yeah, all that's in progress as we speak.
Exciting stuff, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Yago just posted in the Discord. It looks like there was a React working group discussion on renaming use mutable source to use sync external store. And
Yeah,
there's that
that's
shim that you
that's
were
the
talking
current
about.
name, and I believe that's the library they have that we're
Hmm.
using. I believe I have to look it up.
Yeah, and they've got with selector, which is also something that I am very interested in. The context selector. I think they had like a use selector or something. Maybe that's what this is now.
Yeah, the back when we did React Redux 6, the kind of like big performance problem we had with that version was we were trying to um, like put the store state on context and select out of that. But
Hmm.
what would happen is that like any single time you change the store, that's like firing off that context update to like everyone who's looking at it.
Yeah.
And well, that
Performance
seems fine.
problems.
That's causing like renders across the entire application. So it was like super non-performant.
Yeah.
It was the correct way of doing it, but it was like the wrong way of doing it ultimately.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
nobody liked that.
Yeah. It's cool that they're solving this in the framework. So that's excellent.
Yeah.
Exciting times. Well, I'm happy to have you here, Tim. Thanks for hanging
Yeah.
out.
I actually had a question.
Oh, cool.
Kind of like a general question because I'm thinking about it for my own app. So I have like a front end application right now that is purely in the front end. I have a small server in there, so I'm kind of like halfway, like over the hump towards getting towards server side rendering. And I'm curious if you've done any sort of like transition from a like purely front end client rendered application over to a server side rendered application, and kind of like general techniques and processes for like figuring that all out.
Yeah, that's a great question. I have not. I'm assuming you're using React Router. That would be a surprise if you aren't.
Yes.
But I know that the Remix team, one of their big goals once Remix is officially released is to put together a migration guide for React Router users, because it should be like, so first of all, you need to upgrade to React Router v6. And they're going to put together some, or you are, I suppose, maybe put together some migration guide from v5 to v6. And so then once you get to v6, then it'll be a matter of changing your file structure a little bit so that routes are inside of modules and stuff. And you're wiring stuff together manually, just like you are today with the router. And once you get the file structure to resemble what Remix is, then you can just install Remix and poof, now you've got server routing and server rendering and everything. So that, I think for a client-side application that's using React Router, that's the easiest path forward, I think, for getting into the server rendering. I've never migrated a client-side rendering app to server-side rendering, so I can't give you a specific experience-based thoughts about that. But I do know that was something Ryan told me is like a big focus for them once Remix is released, is to just build a really nice bridge from client side to server side for people who are using React Router. So
gotcha. Yeah, I'm currently on v5 with my app. And it's just me, so like I have very limited resources. I can't like put this on someone else.
yeah.
And I'm trying to start a business here, so like I'm juggling so many balls, like that, like the transition to V6. Well, it's here now. It's been something I've just been like pushing off repeatedly. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out like what's the easiest way to get me there, because I'm starting to feel some of like the strain of having a purely client side app. Like some of the login stuff you mentioned earlier, that does kind of resonate with me a bit. So I have my web front end app on like a separate domain, even from my my main marketing site. So they're not quite interleaved completely. And that's partially from the I want to separate out like the technical infrastructure there. Like one's a Next.js site and one's a just a build it myself React app. And there's different needs there for like those kinds of systems. But at the same time, I've run into trouble like with setting up analytics to get like the session that somebody had on like spaceship.run over to on spaceship.com was tricky. I had to like I've built my own stuff to like proxy over like I'm this user ID on this marketing site, and if you happen to see this user ID show up over on the web app, then hey, I'm the same person. So I had to like do some hacking around there to like make that work. And I prefer not to do that. That would just make my life a lot easier. But I do need to like make this overall happen, because I've got like that a separate domain for the web app itself, and I kind of can isolate some things, so like that kind of like the login experience you were just talking about, like that doesn't really apply to me right now. It's still like still feels a little weird to me that like a lot of stuff that like I would smash like the refresh button for to like kind of like fix something that might be a little bit stale. That kind of stuff like feels wrong to me. Like I do definitely like kind of level up the like architecture of my application a bit to like better support like things like suspense as they come down the pipe, and have a better overall user experience. Like there's a lot of stuff that kind of like pops on the page right now. Like just a quick overview, my product is to like do like automatic delivery of software from like GitHub to your servers, and like there's a list of like deliveries I've got on one page, and that will automatically update. I use a library called SWR to manage my API requests. And if I like go into a delivery and just see what's going on with it, cool. And if a delivery happens while I'm on that page and I go back, it will update, but it just flashes in. Like there's no indication that like, hey, I'm requesting more data from the server and stuff might come in at some point. It just, you're on the page and it just suddenly has new data.
Yeah.
And that always it feels a little bit wonky to me, like to, kind of have stuff pop in rather than like transition in.
Yeah.
Which is, the whole focus of suspense is like use transition to indicate that like, hey, a transition is happening of some sort of the state of the system. So I'm just looking to like get to that point eventually. Server-side runner, probably use Remix. I do need to bug Michael or Ryan to give me a key before they go open source, or just give me access to the repo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you showed up a little bit late, and I mentioned this earlier. Don't tell Ryan or Michael about this. I'm
getting looped audio.
You are not the only one.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Okay, it's not just me. Can't your audio is like on a loop of saying this. I can't hear you at all. I guess I'm the host now. Maybe mute yourself and bring it back. It's still looping. Maybe switch audio devices or something.
Not quite sure, but I think at least your image.
Is that better?
Fine.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Back to normal.
Weird. Now it'll just come out of your like left ear now, because it's not going through my software that splits it into left and right. So
it's like crashed.
Yeah. Anyway, like I was saying, don't tell Michael and Ryan about this. I'm sure they'll probably find out and they'll maybe get mad at me. I don't know.
Oh no, it cut out again. Sorry. Welcome to Office Hours with Tim Dorr. Temporarily, at least. Still nothing. Well, I can see here that we got, let me get to this blog.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Let me know if that happens again.
Okay.
I cannot wait for my new MacBook. I'm pretty sure that's why this is causing trouble. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I'm just not going to share my screen anymore. Earlier, I mentioned that if you go to my super simple start to Remix blog post, when they announced that it was going open source, I had to update this blog post to mention that you could no longer purchase a license to Remix because they're going open source. And in the original blog post, I gave an example key or license that was like, your license will look something like this. And when I updated the blog post, that license also changed to something else. So that example key, I don't know, I'm not saying it's going to work, but I'm not saying it's not going to work. So if you wanted to play around with it until before they actually open source it, just don't tell them that. I don't think they'd be mad, but I don't want them to get mad. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, they're in the weird period of like, we are going to be open source, but also you can't buy it. So like it exists, but you don't have access to it.
Yeah.
Until we make it actually released.
Yeah, I figured it was harmless.
I mean, it'll be pretty soon. Like their plan was like, at least what I last heard was like to do the V6 release of React Router, kind of let that mellow for a bit, and if there's like a need for a 601 release, like just do that quickly. And then as soon as that's kind of like calmed down a bit, because it is obviously kind of crazy right now, then switch gears to, okay, now remix is the thing we're focusing on a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay, cool. So we're out of time here, but Sam had to leave the Zoom call and left a comment in the Discord. So I'll answer that really quick, and then Sam can listen to the YouTube recording. So I'm working on a risk assessment form wizard that takes answers like I go one-wheeling in the woods and I go skydiving, turns them into numerical scores, and then displays a report with those scores. I was recommended XState to manage the state of the form wizard. How would you approach taking 50 plus answers and converting them into numerical values? The client has a massive spreadsheet that they translate to. I mean, can you do like a map where it's just like this giant thing where the key is the answer and the value is what the score is, and then you can derive that state when it's selected? I don't know, Sam. I think this one I'm gonna give you where is that? Where is this? It's like bot ask. There we go. Yeah, so probably help a lot to get like a reproduction or something if you want anything more specific than that. But sounds like fun, especially if they're talking about one-wheeling. That's cool. Okay, cool. I think that's all that we've got in here. Any last questions before I wrap this up?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, what's up, Marcos?
How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm freezing, but not too bad. So this is kind of not an easy question, so maybe you want to leave it for next week. I'm not in a rush or anything. So if you're about to wrap up, maybe it's better for next session.
You really can go ahead and ask.
Okay, but like literally tell me if you think, yeah, maybe I don't want to dive into this now. Yeah, it's fine. And also I don't necessarily want you to dive in because it's like, again, not a super clear question, I guess. Anyway, may I share my screen?
Yeah, totally.
Let me know if you can see
I can see it.
Awesome. Is it big enough? I guess this is good enough. Maybe it's not. Okay. Anyway, this is basically, so this is a question I asked maybe several months ago. I don't even remember.
Yeah, I recall this. Was this about
really?
the Reach UI and how they do this?
Yes, it was not necessarily about Reach UI. It was more like, yeah, if I'm not doing something like traversing the structure of my children, like in react.children.toArray, and then traversing all the structure, looking for the components in order to inject them the props I want them to have, which I can derive from like the state of each of those little pieces. You know, how would I go about using or building compound components in a in a way that is easy to build and is not necessarily like the structure of the children is not super imposed. Like I can have any amount of layers of nested components until I find this one component which really needs that state, right? Because I didn't want to do react.children.clone and stuff like that.
Right, yeah, and in some cases that's not possible anyway.
Exactly, yeah. So they do have this use the sentence hook. This is pretty much a version of this, which is much more simple, I'd say, but that also works me, because like, why is there's not that simple? Is it only performance boosts, or is there something actually wrong with what I'm trying to do?
Have you asked them about it?
I did try to get in touch with Chance
Mm-hmm.
a while back. I don't actually know if he, well, yeah, in fact, he does he's interested in he's still interested in this stuff, because he he had a chat not long ago with someone on Twitter about some other solution for something similar, more in the terms of getting the ID of the element in the right order in the DOM or something. It was like a use index hook or something to build lists that are easily keyboard navigable, basically. Yeah. So I don't know. I might try to get in touch with them again.
Okay.
Okay, that might be it.
Yeah. I'm not sure how useful I can be with this, because what you have here looks fine. Like I probably would have done a few things that maybe a little different, but I'm not exactly sure of the use case that you have anyway, and so I can't really speak too much to it.
Yeah, I don't really have a use case. I've just used it for a couple of components so far, and it's worked nicely. So I'm happy with it. It's something that I can understand, I can manage, and I feel that's what I need. But also, I'm like worried. Why is use the sentence so much more complicated than my solution?
I see. Yeah, and I can't answer that because I didn't build that.
Yeah. Completely. Just was wondering if something immediately comes to your mind. But yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you. That's insightful enough.
Okay. I noticed Idris has a question. I'm gonna try. Let me know if you get the looping audio thing again. But I'm gonna try to answer this. So the question was, is there a way to make these checkboxes uncontrolled? Because I need that state on the initial render, trying to avoid managing their state. So yeah, so you've got these two checkboxes. One is active, one is not. You're setting checked. I think what you want is default checked. That will basically do the same thing, except now it's not controlled. Is that does that answer your question? Oh, Yago also answered that. Was it the same answer?
Mine's about the registration.
Oh yeah, different thing. Cool. You two can feel free to continue that discussion if you'd like. If you're going to go long, maybe put it in a thread or something. But Idris, let me know if that default check doesn't work for you. But I believe that's like why it exists. It's actually sort of related in some ways to the blog post that I published just today. What is it? The state initializer pattern. So if you want to take a look at that, it's basically how you build that same sort of thing yourself. So cool. All right, that was it. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody. Yeah, just to wrap things up, I do this every week, so feel free to come back. I don't think that I actually, let's see, I might not be available next week. Maybe my wife is going to be out of town, and so yeah, I'll be doing dad stuff next week, so probably should add a cancellation for next week, but I will be back the week following that. So anyway, exciting things. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the future.